We will not accept your frame. We will not accept your definitions. They are weak by the very process you use to deconstruct them, to deconstruct the categories. And we will speak for ourselves.
What is up, guys? Pastor John here. Welcome to my channel, Man of God, where we draw closer to Christ to become the men that God desires us to be. If you could like, share, subscribe, that helps me a ton. My last video on Are You a Slave to Lust did really well. Thanks for watching that. And just wanted to give you a quick update. I've done about 20 videos now, and my goal for this year is to get up to 100 subscribers. So not, nothing compared to Mr. Beast, but if we can get 100 guys subscribed to this, it would just really encourage me. I think that would be a healthy, organic rate of growth. So we got 15 right now. Be the next one. Be number 16 for me. Appreciate that. So if you are a movie buff or anybody who's been into politics, you know that since the year 2016, the woke movement has really been a part of society. I think 2016 was the year I noticed it because that was the year Trump got elected. There was the Trump derangement syndrome, the fake news, alternative facts.
Donald J. Trump is now president of the United States. President Obama is the ex-president. And Mr. Trump, for the moment, steps up.
And then the movies just totally went down the crapper. I remember I went to Tokyo in 2017, and back then I was more liberal. I still cared about the Academy Awards, like who won Best Picture. And 2017 was when La La Land was accidentally announced as Best Picture, but it was actually Moonlight. So I watched Moonlight on a 13-hour flight to Tokyo, and that was a big eye-opener for me because I was like, this movie is terrible. And I realized the only reason it won was because it was about a black gay guy.
No, thank you. I take it black. Like my man.
I didn't completely understand the woke movement then, but hindsight's 2020, and we've been dealing with this for a decade now. I think we are at the end, especially because Snow White just came out a couple weeks ago and it completely tanked, and Snow White might be the apex of the woke movement. You have Rachel Zegler, super political, and she isn't white. I think she's like Hispanic. And then you have Gal Gadot, which is she's supposed to be the wicked witch, who is not as pretty as Zegler, but I mean, Gal Gadot's way better looking than Zegler. And then you have the CGI dwarfs, because Disney had to reshoot the movie so many times because Peter Dinklage, the guy from Game of Thrones, got pissed that they were actually going to have real dwarfs. Just a joke. And I hope that this is one of the last woke disasters ever made. But I got this clip of Jonathan Pageau sent to me, and it made me think about the woke movement and all this stuff with Snow White and everything. I was like, I want to make a video about the death of the woke movement, and this clip is from 2018. It's a longer clip. It's like 35-minute talk. We're just going to look at 2 minutes of it, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. And if you want the link for the whole clip, I'll put it in the comments of the description.
And my postmodern friends, if you had just paid attention to the stories, if you had just paid attention to the stories which are woven in the fabric of our consciousness, these very stories you tried to deconstruct, you would have noticed that dawn always comes, that a seed is always planted. Their logos regains the center. Christ rises from the dead. And I think that's the excitement we're feeling right now. To find that small spark, that seed of a meaningful pattern surprising us in a collapsing world. And it's not just a pattern of meaning, but it's the beginning of a network of people. I mean, just in the past 2 years, there's a whole new strange group of public figures that's arising from the margins. People who are at least trying to figure it out, who are at least trying to think clearly and work out ideas. And people who are as different from each other as you can imagine, spanning across gender, race, and cultures. Even religious and atheists alike trying to figure it out. And yet the media and the activists, they scream hysterically. Bigot, racist, sexist, Nazi. All the usual litany of attacks. And they're losing their minds. The sand is slipping out of their hand. And only 2 years ago, we would have probably collapsed before this attack. But now, we look around and we find that there is a still, silent center in which to stand. There is an eye in the overwhelming hurricane. And we can finally say, we will not accept your frame. We will not accept your definitions. They are weak by the very process you use to deconstruct them, to deconstruct the categories. And we will speak for ourselves.
For everybody who doesn't know, Jonathan Pageau, which I like him because he spells Jonathan just like I do. Jonathan Pageau, he's like he's friends with Jordan Peterson, which everybody knows Jordan Peterson. He's like the jelly to Jordan Peterson's peanut butter. He's a little softer than Jordan Peterson, but just as smart as a tack. And he's a Orthodox Christian, so check him out. I highly recommend all of his stuff. So he's talking about in this lecture about the logos. And the logos is this idea, this Greek philosophical concept that gets, spoken about. People have heard it. Pageau, he describes the logos as the pattern of reality. It's the principle through which God creates and orders the world. And we read about the logos in John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Logos is translated as the Word. Jesus is the Logos. He is the Word that inundates everything. The idea of the Logos is tightly connected to the other Greek concept, the Platonic idea of the forms, right? Like all the forms are the ultimate reality. Everything points to the forms. So the problem with the woke movement is that it's its own type of logos. It's almost like an anti-logos, if you want to put it that way. It attempts to deconstruct reality into a new reality. The logos, though, cannot be deconstructed. The logos is not subjective. The logos is concrete. A perfect example of the concrete nature of the logos is found in The Lord of the Rings. I'm reading the Two Towers right now, and if you haven't read The Lord of the Rings, every man should read The Lord of the Rings.
Gandalf?
But in that book, it really shows this universal nature of the word. Sam says to Frodo this quote, "It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were, and sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. Every good story that has ever been made follows the pattern of reality. And stories are not just things in books, right? Like our life is a story. Everything has a trajectory, a plot, a movement, a reality that is interweaved by the truth, reality, the logos. So when I say the story, it's not just books or movies, it's everything, right? Everything involves characters growing. It involves objective good versus evil. It involves our desire for a happy ending, right? Every story is like that. And that's why the woke movement dies ultimately. Woke doesn't see evil as evil, good as good. If you think of like a lot of these, I'm going back to Disney, every Disney movie is trying to deconstruct the evil character to make them appear as good.
I'm so horny. I want to kill a differently abled person. I'm literally just your grandma. I want to marry and have sex with a 16-year-old against her will. I was kind of hoping you could just maybe like pay rent. I want to commit war crimes and kill my own brother. Jenny! I'm literally Hitler.
And the things that are good, like honor, sacrifice, courage, are many times seen as bad. So those variables are flipped on their heads. The trajectory of the story is all wrong. It feels off. It feels like a meal that has too much salt, or it feels like a t-shirt that is itchy. It's like, okay, I can wear this, I can taste this, but it's not what's right or good ultimately, right? Woke doesn't allow for complex characters. It only gives single dimensions to characters. You know, black, gay, and trans is good. White, straight, Christian is bad. There's not this complexity to people. And in theory, there should be no problem flipping the variables. But because of the logos, the word Jesus Christ, because Christ inundates all reality, flip-flopping, like I said, it feels off. We can flip-flop for a while, but eventually we desire to get reoriented, or at least those of us who are trying to respond to God's call on our lives, right? I mean, we can reject Jesus, we can reject God, we can reject reality, but it takes some effort. It takes a degree of brainwashing. It takes a degree of becoming numb to reality. So, where are you at? Are you flip-flopping on reality? As men, we need to fight. We need to fight that the logos is held up, right? Like, we need to reorient ourselves. We need to reorient others to the truth. There's a reason why a good story is a good story, whether that's in a book or whether that's your life that you're living. So, I challenge you. Will you follow the logos of ultimate reality or your own logos? Woke is never going to completely die because evil will never completely die. There will still be woke movies made. Hollywood, politics will still try to resurrect the woke movement. They'll put a different name or label on it. But for now, I think the tides have turned. And ultimately, in an eternal perspective, the woke movement will have no existence because Christ is the true logos. I'll leave you with this blessing. May the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Until next time, guys.